all of these things that I do, you see the face and you see the name, and it just allows these people to tie those two things together. I've always believed that I'm a brand. If you see me, it's always Tim Nela. Like, I'm adamant about my name, who I am. So like, when you just find a connection, and whatever that connection is, run with it. But you have to passionately be, like, you and I can talk for hours about wrestling, but then it's the same thing with how I feel about fitness and how I feel about theater. The people that enjoy theater go to the show. They go to the show, they go, I have no idea who this guy is, but he's doing a hell of a job. And then next thing you know, it's a simple Facebook, Google search. And then they find out, oh, he also sells house. And at that point in time, they go, hey, I want you to sell my house because you love theater and I love theater. And there's a connection there. And it allows me to just be me.
You are listening to the number one real estate podcast in the world. We talk with real estate professionals all across North America, but their wins, losses, lessons, and stories help you win in your local market today. My name is Cody from Sheridan Street. I'm joined with Vikram Deol of the Real Estate Sales Academy. Vic, what is happening? You doing well? You doing well?
Yeah, man.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
You get over there?
I wasn't this
I know,
last morning.
I've been seeing on Instagram. I've been seeing on Instagram that you've been struggling. Like, you haven't been feeling the best.
It's not. Yeah, I mean, it's not that I don't feel good. It's a thing called a piriformis, and it's a tendon that wraps from like the butt cheekish. It runs through your butt cheek.
Oh, that's fun.
And so and then that piriformis tendon connects into like the side of your thigh.
Okay.
And then it connects, I guess, to like your IT band, and then it also connects to your psoases.
Okay.
And so, like, I cycle a lot, and last year, I
you haven't cycled much this year, eh? Like, it's been primarily
30 miles this year, and it put me right back into my. It was 30 miles, and they're easy miles too, like mostly downhill.
Yeah,
and so all that's just like a big tight lump, and what it does is it pulls on everything. So it pulls up your foot, through your calf, up your IT band, and it pulls your back, and it taps into the sciatic. So it's just like this morning, I was actually in tears, and I just put my head down. I actually had a tear roll down my eye because I literally couldn't get up and I couldn't move. And if I'm sitting on a pillow and a heating pad right now. And I don't like taking pain pills. Like, I'll pop CBD, and I'm not going to take pain pills, and I'll put injections into me. But I broke down yesterday, and I bought, I saw the
Dolex. I saw the Dolex.
Yeah,
I'm like, man, this guy must be in a lot of pain.
Yeah, it's just the basic, but I broke down. So, I equate things always back to like, how is it affecting life? So I reached out to my therapist, and this might be an interesting interloop, but I reached out to my therapist yesterday, and I'm like, hey bro, business is really good. There's a lot of cool things happening between my buddy and I, like his business and my business. Like, we're doing some really cool things together. The podcast is doing really well. Socials are doing really well. Am I like purposely self-sabotaging myself because things are going really well? Am I self-sabotaging myself with this pain that it limits my ability to grow at this point? He's like, yeah, it's very well. So we have a call after this today because, I want to see if there's something that I'm subconsciously holding on to.
Interesting.
Because I'm at that point where we haven't been in a really long time.
Literally.
And I'm at that point where, it's a breakthrough or a breakdown.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And I think a lot of people, when we start going through breakthroughs, our internal vision of ourselves isn't matching the external vision of ourselves or the bank account or whatever it is. And then we start to not feel that worthiness. So we start to interject things. And so it's kind of an interesting thing that I'm going through because it's going on for now. This is going on 6 months, but the pain has been really bad the last 3, last few weeks. So we'll figure it out.
I hope everything works out for you. I hope you feel better.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it. So what's up with you, man?
Really quick,
we got the same chair though. We got the same chair off of Amazon.
It's like we share the same Amazon account, but Things are good, man. Things are rocking and rolling. I'm pumped about our guest. Like the reason I'm pumped about our guest.
Introduce him.
Our
Go
guest.
for it. Introduce him.
So we got Tim Nela with us in Nela World Order, and in the green room, NWO in the green room, he popped in, and like I'm like, bro, are you wearing an NWO shirt? Like, are you a wrestling fan? And like
Cody was
like
never happier to have a guest on the RE Agent podcast.
I was like a kid in a candy shop. Like whenever I get the opportunity, I don't get a lot of opportunity to chat with a ton of people about wrestling. And for those that don't know that I'm a massive wrestling fan when it comes to like, watching, podcasts, listening to podcasts, watching documentaries. I grew up watching the sport. And
had I known you were such a big wrestling fan, I probably would have defriended you immediately.
Hey, you're welcome. But like, we got Tim Nela here with us on the podcast, somebody that's, I just had the opportunity to meet in the green room, and we already connected around this. And I think this is going to tie really great into the conversation that we're going to have today about, how to build rapport with somebody, and we were chatting about, building rapport based off of like similar interests. So Tim, before we get into
also real quick, before I forget, you should watch the episode with Kyle Gray.
Yeah.
And you should watch the episode with Connor Kelly. I got his name confused on the last one. You should watch those two episodes because this is going to, it's kind of like the last three episodes are daisy chaining, building one on top of the other.
Yeah, 100%.
So like, it's going to be interesting to see kind of like the storyline and social, but you guys should definitely go watch
storytelling based conversation. So Tim, like, give us like the high level version of how the hell you got here today when it comes to like real estate.
Well, the high level version is that there was a procreation event, and then there was a birthing event.
Well, I don't want to know that. I just want to know the real estate related stuff.
Was there alcohol involved during that event? Like, we were also
chatting in the green room about him, wrestling in a wrestling match. So I want to hear a little bit about that. Just give us like 60 to 90 second version.
A 4-hour podcast today.
This is going to be, and then we're going to get into the Monday Night Wars.
That's my God. Okay. Enough. I'm done. I'm going to go do some real work, you guys.
Okay. Tim, take it away. Give us a high level overview of who you are.
Yeah, no. Well, first off, I appreciate you guys for just even having me because I've listened to majority of your episodes, and the fact that I'm even a guest surprised me because you guys have had everybody from like Beth Nardowny, Tamir, Sharon, Tim Macy, and I'm going, why am I on the show? But so the long story of it is, so I was actually a car guy who did not like cars at all. So I was in the auto industry for auto industry for 8 years, did everything from sales, finance manager, finance director, did all that stuff. And I don't even know how I lasted 8 years. And the day that I had said that I'm going to be leaving
industry, bro.
Oh, very tough industry. And when I said I was going to be leaving, the owner of the dealership, who's actually a good friend of mine still, was like, I'm surprised you even lasted this long. He said, I was going to give you at least a month and you exceeded all expectations. And because the hard thing with that industry for me was just, I was a sitting duck. I had to sit still, people had to come in and you had to greet them. And ultimately, in regards to like how I am even sitting here with you guys right now, I'm out and about, so I know with the intro, Cody, you and I will get into it in a second, but with the whole Nela World Order thing, I mean, that's me. I've loved professional wrestling since I was a kid. And I know a lot of people out there are big pro wrestling fans, but they don't want to admit it. But it's crazy because the connection that you can have with somebody just based off the fact that there's something there. So like in this case, and
we spent more time in the green room and me having to listen to Cody and Tim talk about stuff that, I mean, it's not bad. It's just like, it'd be like me talking to somebody on bikes and I'm like,
well, no, that's actually a perfect example. Like, no, Vic.
It was the longest green room session ever. But
let's not glance over what you just said.
No.
Vic.
But let me finish my statement here. But here's the thing: when you guys learn that social media isn't just about like, oh, hi, today I'm going to talk about this house. Today I'm going to talk about and you start to allow yourself to share your personality, the people that resonate are going to love it. Everybody else is never I will never see random wrestling. Now I will, because my phone's listening, but I will never see random wrestling content of your guys's because I don't like wrestling. It's not my like, oh my God, this is what I love. And so your clients that love it will see it and the clients that don't won't, but you will build that instant connection, and they're going to like and trust you a little bit more as long as you don't say dumb stuff because they watch these things, right? So like people we're too like focused in on trying to be these people that we're not one dimensional.
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to say. Like, use your multiple dimensions to connect with the right people, because your business becomes better when you only have awesome people you want to work with.
Yep. No, 100%. And like, Tim, like, as we were talking in the green room, can you like walk us through kind of like, what's obviously you're a professional wrestling fan. So that's kind of what drew on.
Makes you the coolest guest we've ever had.
Yeah, exactly. The NWO, like for those that don't know, backstory about that really quickly, changed the face of professional wrestling. Whenever somebody sees that logo, if they're a professional wrestling fan, they're like, yeah, that's the NWO. But I guess like, what has that, really leaning into the, multiple sides of you? We're chatting in the green room about like, the football player, but also professional wrestling fan. Like, how has that kind of played into kind of how you interact with the community on a day-to-day basis?
Well, so it goes back to what Vic was saying, and then we glazed over it, and then we're going to go back to it real quick. Because like when he talked about his obsession with bikes, right? And then you were going to chime in on that, Cody. It's the exact same thing. So it's like, whether it's pro wrestling, whether it's fitness, whether it's football, whether it's theater, whether it's I wear Jordans, there's something that connects with somebody else. So then like in my world right now, I just like to do a lot of things. And the things that I do, I call it this. It puts me in somebody's living room in the aspect of they are sitting there and they see me in their setting. So like I did a play last year. I don't know if Vic knows about this. So I was a lead role in a play, A Raisin in the Sun. So now here's how I view it. I enjoy theater. The people that enjoy theater go to the show. They go to the show. They go, I have no idea who this guy is, but he's doing a hell of a job. And the next thing you know, it's a simple Facebook search, Google search. And then they find out, oh, he also sells houses. And at that point in time, they go, hey, I want you to sell my house because you love theater and I love theater. And there's a connection there. And it allows me to just be me. So like Vic has Instagram now. So it's like the footsteps every morning. You know what I mean? They're never satisfied on the bottom. There's a trend going on here. And that trend is just me essentially telling people, you're going to get the chance to work with me. And this is exactly who I am when you work with me. It's outside of me trying to go meet somebody and all of a sudden try to be them. I'm already me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it works.
Yeah. And it's really interesting because like one of my good friends, Neil Morden, really, really good friend. We wrote a book together. He always describes it as like comfort food. So it's like, like when you tell your story in a way where you share different aspects that you're passionate about, it's comfort food for the end consumer to be like, okay, like I also relate to the professional wrestling, or I also relate to the fact that, I'm a fanatic about bikes. Like, Vikram could chat about biking for hours on end. Like, there was one Sunday, I remember Vic's like, hey, I want to stop at this bike shop. And he was in there for like an hour and a half. And I'm like, bro, I love you, but peace out, man. I'm going home.
And I don't know what I'm talking about when I'm in a bike store either. I just like to look at the pretty shiny carbon fiber.
And he's there for hours on end.
Happy.
And it's like the same thing with professional wrestling, or, some people love football. Some people love soccer.
Cars,
but like,
watches.
When you talk about, watches another one. When you talk about getting belly to belly, face to face, or in the living room, like what is that? Like, okay, so you have to kind of break it down for somebody, you have a hobby, you love what you do. How do you get strategic about it? Like you were strategic about Nela World Order, and we were chatting in the green room, and you said like, hey, you should come to this event that I'm doing in July. Like how has that played out from like a relationship building aspect, and like how walk me through the strategy? Because like generally when you see results, there's some sort of strategy on the back end. What's that strategy for you?
So one thing, and you're going to learn about this with me right now, is I've always believed that I'm a brand, and I strongly am obsessed with my family history, my culture. I was born in Sudan. So it's like, if you see me, it's always Tim Nela. Like I'm adamant about my name. I'm adamant about who I am. So like when you talk about being in that living room, the thing with me is all of these things that I do, you see the face and you see the name. And it just allows these people to tie those two things together. Yeah. And so like why it works for me is because I passionately love playing football. I mean, I started a football team here in my community with 2 other friends 8 years ago. And what it did is the people who love football, they would go to these events. I got obsessed with Canva. I started creating flyers. I started promoting it. And then now I get to go out there, be in my element, a game of football. And the people who are fans of football now have a connection with me. So like that belly to belly, that's my approach to belly. Like I've done it where I've sat there and I've created content and I've talked about things that everyone else is talking about. And I still do it every now and then. But now you get to a point where it's like, just find a connection, and whatever that connection is, run with it. And then, but you have to passionately be like you and I could talk for hours about wrestling because you actually legitimately enjoy wrestling. But then it's the same thing with how I feel about fitness and how I feel about theater. And so I don't know. It's so hard to me because like I try to talk to people about this all the time and people just don't grasp what I'm trying to say. Because I'm going, this isn't a hard concept. It allows you to have conversations with people without having to deviate away from who you are.
Yeah, no, I'm a huge proponent on that. Like, it's interesting we're having this conversation today because I've been thinking a lot about this as I've kind of leaned, well, probably over the last 3 to 4 months, I've leaned heavier back into like showing that side of me. Like I'm a foodie, but like the wrestling side of me, a lot of people didn't know. And then it started coming out because I'm like, well, it's WrestleMania. Like I'm going to post about WrestleMania every single year, but I don't really talk about the indie stuff that I'm into. And once you actually get into a conversation, you figure out, we were saying in the green room, of how deep a person is actually into a thing. Like the deeper you're into that thing, like you talk about passion, like you and I can sit and have a conversation about indie wrestling. We have a conversation about, 90s wrestling. And it's probably the same for you, Vic, like, with like biking, like, when you look at biking, like when somebody bikes, as like as a hobby, like versus like, is it like really a hobby? I guess like I want to hear from both of you because like you both have passions. How does somebody lean into be able to create content or be able to make connections through the true things? Like number one, how do they discover what they're really, really passionate about? And then B, how do they capitalize on how passionate they are about a specific subject? Like for you, Vic, it would be, for me, it's wrestling. For you, it might be biking, or, for you, I know like it could be health and wellness. And then you mentioned football.
I only have like a hyperbaric chamber, like a special like cellular regeneration device. Like a lot of people get confused with likability and rapport.
Yeah.
Right. Like likability means I like Tim. I want to be around Tim. Right. And that means that you have an opportunity to make an interaction and a connection.
Agreed.
Right. Like, yeah, I'm in Slack right now because I'm obsessed with sales. So I'm in Slack because one of our sales guys he had a really bad conversation. Not because it wasn't long, it's because he doesn't listen. He's so attached to the outcome of booking an appointment to try to close a deal that he's missing the humanity part of it. What we're doing here is we're being humans with humans, right? We're humanizing the conversation. That's a door opener. It's not a guaranteed paycheck.
It's true.
Right?
Yeah, it's very true.
I want to make sure that like you guys don't confuse the fact that you have to have a sales process attached to what you're doing. Because here's what agents think. I'm going to go out. I'm going to create social media content. I'm going to get a bunch of people that DM me and I'm going to get a paycheck. And that doesn't happen because from the DM to the phone call, to the showings, to the listing appointment, to the paycheck, there are a lot of difficult steps.
Well, especially now with you going up against multiple offer situations, or you're going up against other agents, or you're having to explain buyer compensation. 100%. Right. That's not what we're saying.
It's always been challenging on the listing side.
Yeah.
The buyer side, like I saw an agent post today on social media, and she's a good agent, right? She did 24 transactions or so in the last 12 months, right? And she said, I've lost 2 listings, 1 buyer.
Yeah.
And my neighbor in the last 24 hours. I found all that out.
Why?
Right? She's a good agent. I'm assuming based off of her rant that there's some things in her sales process that she does well, but there's probably a couple minor tweaks that if she changed, right, she might have got 50% of those people.
Yeah.
Right? She's probably using an older sales method that was great pre-COVID, but post-COVID in this anti-trust, anti-real estate agent world, right? So what we're doing with what Tim is talking about, what Kyle talked about, what Connor talked about in our last is what we're doing is we're opening doors. But remember, an open door doesn't mean a paycheck, because an open door can close very quickly and you're always competing against somebody. So you still need the skills, because I talked to somebody yesterday.
Yeah, you could like somebody, but that doesn't mean you want to do business with them. 100%.
And there's a different thing. People can trust you and not like you, and they'll do business with you.
Yeah.
You will have more people. I have more people that say, Vic, I didn't really like you at first, but damn, you were fucking good. And you were systematized, organized, and your shit was like buttoned up, that we didn't really like you. Or we're like, we're probably not going to come to your client appreciation party and be on your social media until we got to know you. They're like, because you come in and you're like straight up.
Yeah.
But we trust. I said, so why'd you guys use me? And here's the number one thing. We trusted your process better than the other agents we interviewed.
So
we didn't like you as much as the other agents, but we trusted your process. And I got a lot of people that don't like me that trust me. And then they get to know me and then they still don't like me.
I'm going to piggyback off that, because the one thing that I think a lot of people lose sight of, and it's like what you're talking about, is it goes back to things like fitness and theater. And that's why I always talk about this. You can't cheat those things. I know, Cody, you did 75 hard at one point in time. You can't cheat those things. So the thing is, even though people may like you, may be charismatic, you may have the look, behind closed doors, if you're not practicing, if you're not reaching out to people like Vic, if you're not asking questions, it's like all people see is what you show them. So like when you create content and you're out there and you sound good on camera, you have a teleprompter in front of you or whatever it is, you articulate nice, all that stuff is cute. But behind closed doors, if you're not practicing, if you're not rehearsing, if you're not spending time, you're not asking questions, and then now you're face to face with somebody, all that stuff goes out the window. Now, the one thing with certain individuals, they have a thing where, like, if you have likability and people trust you, that goes a long ways. But if you don't have a process, and if you take them on a journey and it leads to a dead end, they'll leave you. I mean, it doesn't matter what your relationship is. They'll go to the next person that has a better system, a better process. And that's what happened to me when I first started in real estate. I essentially went with the team where I wanted to be on this team because the split was higher. All I cared about, this is 2 years ago, I cared about the split. And now granted, my first 4 months, I sold 4 houses. Once again, but it was all based off of just likability, people that I knew. It was rough. I mean, these people liked me that much that it happened, but then I essentially left and I went to Beth's team because they had a system, they had a process, and I can actually sit there and talk to somebody and feel comfortable knowing that I know what I'm talking about versus just doing this imposter thing. And I think a lot of people get caught up in that. We're like, they may be great on social, like Vic was saying, but when they're face to face with somebody, they have no direction.
So how do we, coming back, again, I think everyone listening gets this. They we've beat a dead horse about this, about you got to have process, you got to have systems, because you can do all the social media you want. We've had, Vic, you and I have had conversations with people who have great social media channels. They build a ton of rapport, and they have 21 listings sitting on the market that they can't sell because they didn't price the home properly.
Because they didn't have the right conversation.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't have the aspirational pricing, the event-based pricing, everything we chat about in the Real Estate Sales Academy. They don't have
Everybody wants a listing until it doesn't sell.
Yeah, exactly. But
everyone wants to hang out with Mike Tyson until he punches you in the jaw.
let me shift gears for us in order to talk about this. Again, you got to have systematic process, but where people I think are hung up is and I was even hung up with this. I'm bringing more of this out where it's hey, I love wrestling, and that is a thing that now brings in the comfort food. How do you discover and how do you tell that side of your story without drowning out the professional side of your story, without then drowning out the biking side of your story? I could be really into biking, but I could be really into football, but could also be really into wrestling. How do you pick the thing to go in on? How do you do that?
I mean, for me, it really just goes off of, you have to understand what hat to wear at what time. So it's conversation starts off with wrestling. We talk wrestling, and then ultimately the thing is, we're not here to talk about wrestling, right? So it's that wrestling conversation is always going to be there. But at this point in time right now, it's okay, so you want me to list your house, you want to make so-and-so, here's how we're going to do it, here's the process, and this is why this works. And I think sometimes what happens is just people just want to bank on that thing that people are connected with, as it's just going to lead to the sale. It doesn't always work that way.
What are your thoughts, Vic?
Yeah, man, you're 100% correct. if you make content right now, go out everybody and make content for the sake of making content. Don't be attached. The problem with everybody in this world, like it's what I was talking to one of our sales guys about just a few minutes ago. I said, you're attached to an appointment. I'm attached to helping somebody. If somebody doesn't need what I sell, I'm going to find out where to send them. You're attached to getting an appointment because you want to put it on your KPI tracker.
Yeah.
I'm not attached to that. If we're not the right, like I just let go of our first client. And I said, I'm releasing your energy to the world so that I can get the right energy into my world, because you're not the right person. We weren't the right fit. I looked at some things, we chatted some things, we figured it out and we made it work. And I'm like, we're both better off. Right. But when people go out there in the world and they make content, they're making it because they want to get a sale. They want to go viral. They want this. Like you get 2 to 3 people like, oh my God, Vic, you only have 400 people that like your fucking post, right? You only have 200 viewers. And I'm like, yeah, but those are engaged viewers. They watch 60% of my content and they keep coming back and watching it. So those are going to be potential clients in a few weeks or months. Whereas you're worried about the metric. I'm worried about what? I'm worried about the connection. Because eventually when you connect with the right people, they're going to come back into your world and you're going to get to help them, which then creates a paycheck. So when you're out there, like go ahead and start with what you're comfortable. Like for me, I post pictures in a hyperbaric chamber. I post pictures with a nose cannula, right? Like I got my little machine right here.
The dog thing's got to stop though, man. This is getting out of hand.
The what?
I keep farting in front of this dog and it's just...
Yeah. It's like I put my nose cannula.
I don't know what's going on with this whole thing. I keep seeing this.
And here's the thing though. The joking side of me is who I am. Like I can't... Tim, you've been in my calls.
Mm-hmm.
Am I pretty similar on social as I am on my calls?
That's why we are doing this. That's why, you're the exact same person I met at Rise in San Diego.
When I talked to my buddy Steve Olson, who's been on this, and we knew each other from 8 years ago, and then I got out of the business in 2018, 2017, and we stopped going to the same events. We're still friends on Facebook. We still see each other's posts, and he goes, bro, you were exactly the same online as you are in real life. And he goes, and I feel like, even though I haven't seen you in 5 years, like I feel like I know my boy Vikram that I used to hang out with. And I'm like, and you're exactly the same too. You still got your stand-up desk, and we instantly had that connection. And then the thing is though, we have to take it from, like you said, Tim, it's not about the wrestling. What is it about? It's about the connection. So, hey, I know we connected over wrestling, but tell me, like, what's going on in your world that made you want to reach out about possibly buying or selling a home?
Yeah.
And that's the little bit of a shift, which is what we call a transition.
Yeah.
But dude, if you're not comfortable making content about real estate, then go ahead and make content about what you're comfortable with, Cody. And for me, I started out with a lot of vulnerable posts because I was going through Tony Robbins. And then I shifted into more work. And now I'm shifting back into a little bit of both, right? And then I'm going to shift into biking and working out again. I'm going to constantly evolve my content because we are humans and we evolve. And the evolution actually is what people love because they see the evolution of your content.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh,
they
man.
see the evolution of you.
Yeah. And they see and they feel part of your journey.
And I was going to say this to you too, Cody. So like back to what you were saying. So like a lot of it though too is I'm creating a long time pipeline because in most cases, when you're doing all of these different things, it's not going to connect or resonate at that point in time.
Yeah.
You may not be in the same ethos with the people at that current time, but then down the road, what's going to happen is those people are going to reach out. One of my last transactions was somebody that we were bill collectors together 15 years ago. I'm not making this up. So then what happened? We've stayed in, like, he's been kind of watching me. He doesn't comment, doesn't say anything on my socials. Been watching. Vic knows I have a son, 2.5-year-old. His name's Drip. And so like, he's seen that stuff. He's seen how I've evolved from a bill collector, a car dealer, now I'm selling real estate. Now I'm a single father. He sees all that stuff. When he called me, we talked on the phone for an hour. We kind of just caught back up. And then he instantly goes, I've been interviewing agents and I just want to let you know that's what I'm doing. And I'm like, all right, cool. Totally fine. You know, like next thing you know, by the time that call ended, he's like, you know what? I'm just going to go with you. I don't know why. But yeah, so that, and I was like, okay, cool. And I had another person, I listed her house. She was a lady that I met over a decade ago, and I really didn't even know her. I'd leave the gym every morning, and this is what I would do, Cody. Have a nice day. Have a nice day. Have a nice day. She calls me a few months ago. Hey, is this Tim? I'm like, yeah, I gotta stop doing that. Hey, is this Tim? I'm like, yeah. She goes, you may or may not know me, but I used to see you at the rack in the mornings, and I want you to list my house. I go, oh, really? Go to the listing appointment. It's her and her parents. And then I'm sitting there. Like I said, this is the longest conversation I've ever had with her outside of have a nice day. House is sold. She's happy. We still stay connected long term.
So what I want to close out here with, because we've all been in local communities. Like I started my business in a local community, Peterborough, Canada. I was very hyper local focused. As a real estate agent, I think one of the things that people miss out on, and we haven't really talked about this a whole lot, Vic, on this show. We talk a lot about, content. We had a couple of things, but when you were in Seattle, Vic, you were hyper local focused. And it sounds, Tim, like a lot of what you're doing is
took me back to a whole new world.
Yeah, but a lot of what you're doing, what is right now, you're talking about being hyper local. Like, hey, I'm at my gym and I'm being conscious about the people I'm connecting with on a day in, day out basis. And I think that, like when I look back at the growth of our agency in the very beginning, it was super, super hyper local focused. Going to coffee meetings, being active in the community, being a part of the Chamber Board of Commerce, going to every networking event that I could possibly go to. If there was a large event locally, I would be there. My face was consistently out there. And like we chatted today about, being the same person on camera and off camera. When you're the same person on camera and off camera, that's when the real connection happens, which, creates these types of conversations.
If you guys have never watched wrestling, this won't be relevant, but just plug it into something that comes from something you did as whether it be like an athlete, right? In our coaching call that I had with a couple of our, some of our internal team members, Colton goes, man, today was a great day. Blah, 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 team won. And then Cameron goes, well, I like this team. And he goes, why? And he goes, because when this guy left the team, well, I just didn't really care anymore about the team because my guy was so-and-so. I don't know. They're talking about, I don't know, hockey or football. I don't fucking know. Who cares? These guys don't pay me, so I don't pay attention to them. But think about this. You guys were talking about Vince McMahon, right? And his character, not his business, but his character. You guys were talking about, who are you talking about?
Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Stone Cold Steve Austin. You guys were talking about this NWO movement that happened, right? You guys are talking about these people in first person, like you know them, but you're talking about a character they portrayed online.
Yeah. Storytelling.
And the thing that you have to remember is that this is where agents fail. If you got 50% of the world to love you, isn't that more people that love you than maybe right now? Because 50% extra know you. We're so concerned about everybody loving us. I'm trying to use my content to push away the wrong people.
Yeah.
I don't need every realtor in the world. I need the ones that like the health journey. They like to see me suffer. They're curious about why I'm going into this hyperbaric chamber, right? They want to improve their longevity, their life, right? They want to make more money. But they're also going to be okay with Vic making a fucking joke about my girlfriend who's Latina because I live in Colombia and she constantly threatens me. And that's the truth, right? But we have a loving relationship. I don't need somebody who's like, oh, Vic, so judgment. I don't want you in my world because we're not going to jive. And if we don't jive, you're not going to do what I need you to do to change your results. The reason why we make content is to bring the people in that love us and push the people out that hate us, not to try to change consumer behavior. And the more we understand that.
You did that locally too. Like you did that locally in Seattle.
I was an asshole. Yeah. People don't like me. We did a lot of business because people are like, dude, you were just straight to the point. Like I'm telling you, so many of my clients would tell Justin, they're like, we're only working with you because of you. We're only working with this team because of you. And just like, no. Once you get to know Vic, you'll realize he's not so rough around. I've softened over my years, but they also knew, but we also knew that if we worked with you guys, we wouldn't lose.
Yeah.
So like, we don't really want to be around Vic. And he's like, no, Vic's super cool.
There was the process
like,
on the back
my
end.
girlfriend hates him too. like at first, but now she loves him.
Cody, I want to say this back to the comment that you were saying about the whole community involvement. So like, and you're going to really like this because it goes back to like the Cody Rhodes thing we talked about earlier. This is back to
Cody Rhodes. That was the name.
Well, here's the thing. So it's like people want you to finish your story. And that's kind of what happens with this community involvement thing where I've lived in this community for 26 years. I'm 35 years old. So a lot of these people have watched
Damn,
me.
bro, you're old.
Stop it. And so the thing is, when you talk about finish that story, like when they follow your journey and they see you and they see things happening, they've seen you self-sabotage, they've seen you up, they've seen you down, people are rooting for you. So like, it goes back to wrestling. Like they're telling a story. And in most cases, but it's 100%.
It's true.
I agree. Well, people want to know what's going on in Drip's life.
They do.
Like, they want to know. They want to know, like, you know, where he's at in his journey and how he's coping with the separation, and they are concerned about, are you going to be able to handle your business and him, and like what's going on with the ex? Like, is she okay? She didn't seem like she was a bad person. People want to know, and you think your life is boring, but I promise you guys, everybody was boring until they became famous.
Yeah. So,
and then all of a sudden they're cool, but they're still boring as fuck.
Yeah.
That's so true.
Man, this is such a great way. This was a ton of fun.
Probably the longest podcast we've done in a week.
Now we're going to have to do a wrestling podcast. We're going to do a wrestling specific podcast. But Tim,
please don't invite me.
Tim, if somebody want to reach out to you, where's the best place that we can send them for you to have a conversation with them?
The best way to get hold of me is either on Instagram at Tim Nela, Nela, or on Facebook. I'm also on other platforms as well too, but those two mainly.
Mr. Tim, it was great. Too sweet for anyone listening that is a wrestling fan. You know what I mean?
Anybody watching, he just did like a gang sign. They're doing gang signs over here. They're doing gang signs. Hey, you guys, if you guys got value out of this, do us a favor. Cody and I are looking for sponsors, so go ahead and just send us some checks. But if you don't want to send us a check and make it rain on us, then do us a favor, whether you're listening on iTunes or Spotify or whatever your platform is, YouTube, like, subscribe, leave a comment about what you learned, right? Don't leave a comment about what you liked. Oh, you guys are funny and Vikram's so good looking. I know you guys, my parents did a great job, but leave a comment, right, on what you learned, because what we want from these podcasts is that they're entertaining, they're fun, but we want you in this moment of action to take action and write down something that you've heard before, but you're not doing, you haven't heard before that you'd like to do, and create a little quick 5-minute, 30-second plan and take action. Like, pull over, be careful if you're driving, but pull over, get off the treadmill. Don't get hurt. Please don't get hurt. Please don't get hurt. And take a second to put an action plan together, because this is episode 230, 240 for us, something 220. Yeah, you got a lot of work. You're only on 80. You need to catch up.
You told me to.
And, do a solid and share this with your team lead, share this with your broker of record, share this with other people in your marketplace. Because you guys, we talk to more agents than you guys could imagine every day. And so do our teams. 85% of agents right now are struggling and they don't have the funding to take care of themselves. Share this content. It's free. Tim went through 80 episodes and I'm sure he learned at least a lot, because we only bring in the top people that are doing stuff and winning. So I don't know, Cody, I took your thunder.
With that, I want to say thank you for tuning in to another episode of the RE Agent Podcast. We'll see you soon.